Hello and welcome back to our third in the series of Loneliness in the Workplace. I'm Nina Kelly, I'm the CEO of Safe New Futures, and I'm joined once again by Peter Taylor, President of the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, Senior Partner of Paris Smith, and also Michael Holbrow, MD of Inspired Leadership Solutions. Now, in our last podcast, we looked at young people and why they particularly feel lonely in the workplace, but another group of people who are at risk of loneliness are senior managers. Now, you've heard the phrase, it's lonely at the top. Well, it turns out that really is quite true. 32% of senior managers are often or always lonely, and that's nearly twice the average. And they're also more likely to feel that their colleagues are like strangers, say the British Red Cross. Now, in my personal experience, leadership is a lonely place. As leaders, we have to innovate. We have to be tenacious, resilient. We have to keep moving people out of their comfort zones. In fact, we have to keep moving ourselves out of our comfort zones as well in order to make things happen, in order to energize the team. And we have to bring everyone with us, even in difficult circumstances. Now, when I look back at my current and previous leadership roles, there are a number of things that contribute to that sense of being lonely at the top. So just some examples. We have to be accountable for the things that are not right. We have to be the ones communicating unpopular news. We need to make those really difficult decisions that people don't understand. We have to take risks, often without any support. We have to model resilience when the unexpected happens, which it often does, and we have to take and face criticism and misunderstanding. So no wonder senior managers can feel lonely, and no wonder we're more likely to feel that our colleagues are like strangers. Taking those decisions that are unpopular to make things work, living with being misunderstood and criticised is hard, especially when all we're trying to do is our best for everyone. At times, there are people who have malicious intentions. They need to be circumvented. And the hardest part of all is when there's no one we can talk to about these problems. And throughout it all, we have to hold on to our vision. And we have to be ready to take advantage of any opportunities that move us closer to our end goals to achieve that vision. And none of that is easy. And you know what? It's not easy for other people to understand. Now, Peter, you have been a well-known and respected leader in the city of Southampton for a number of decades. Has this ever been difficult for you? How have you held onto your vision whilst bringing everyone with you? And what words of wisdom can you give us for other leaders in this position?
Thank you, Nina. I think this is a really important point in terms of the loneliness at the top and how one can best address that within one's own skill set. And for me, it is important to be authentic and show vulnerability. And for me, showing vulnerability is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness, as is showing signs of emotion. And we saw in the Olympics recently Adam Peaty, who is a phenomenal breaststroke swimmer, showing emotion when he won the silver medal in Paris. Mm-hmm. No one person has all the answers. And I think recognising that and being open about that fact to everybody around you is important. So that you then have a situation in which everybody feels they can contribute to achieving the desired goal, which is delivery of one's sense of purpose and the sense of purpose as a business. Mm. For me, right across the leadership team, it is important that everybody feels able to sleep easy at night. And at the heart of one of our core values, both as the Chamber of Commerce and as Paris Smith, is that of integrity. Yeah. Always doing the right thing, even when nobody else is looking. Yeah. And if you can do that and honestly look at yourself in the mirror, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and knowing that that is what you have done, then you will be in a sound place. Yeah. In terms of how I have addressed this, I want to give a couple of examples. First and foremost, when we started out delivering mental resilience program within Paris Smith, I felt it was important that as the leader of the business, I stood up and showed personal vulnerability. Back in 2004, I had a kidney transplant. I'm not a great one for hospitals, and lying in bed waiting for the nurses to come and take me down to the operating theatre, I was in a high state of anxiety, and I didn't know whether I was going to survive or not.
Yeah.
But I had to put my trust in God and in the surgeons, and fortunately all turned out well.
Yeah.
But for that moment, I felt very vulnerable, very exposed. And I shared that story with everybody within the firm when we delivered the mental resilience program. Because if I showed some mental vulnerability, then that gave permission for everybody within the organisation to do likewise, and so it happened. Some people came forward who one might have thought were very robust and in a strong place. Actually, it turned out that they did need some support. During the pandemic, the first thing, because I'd had my kidney transplant, the first thing I discovered that we were on the cusp of something that was going to be very life-changing was when I listened to the Radio 4 News one Sunday morning, and it said anybody with a compromised immune system, as I was because of my transplant, was going to be shielding for 12 weeks. I was close to my brothers, I was close to my mother. Mum was in a nursing home. Would I see her again? If she died, would I be able to go to her funeral? How was I going to cope? How was I going to manage 260 people from a remote building, a remote office, i.e. my home, for the next 12 weeks? And I had emotional turmoil. But then I thought, right, I need to be thinking about the business, about everybody within the business, because if I'm feeling like that, when they hear the news, it'll be a whole lot worse for a lot of them. And then during the course of the pandemic, we had a regular slot. I did a video every Friday to the firm, and I just made 3 points. And one of the key points was always, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're hearing from the government, and this is how we're interpreting it. We haven't got all the answers. I don't think the government had all the answers at the time, and obviously we know that to be the case now. But this is what we're trying to do, and it goes back to that point about integrity.
Yes.
Making the best of what you've got and the information that you've got, but accepting that you may not have all the facts, but retaining that sense of hope and optimism for the future. Continuing to be realistic about what's going on at the moment, but hope and optimism for the future. And I think if you bear in mind those factors and that sense of purpose, that will hold you as a leader in good stead. Having a support network within the business and key trusted people outside the business is also key.
Yes.
And being able to turn and talk to people who won't judge you for what you are.
Yes.
Is again hugely important.
Fabulous. Yeah. Well, that's there's a lot in there, Peter, and we can perhaps unpack some of that in some future podcasts. But that tension between being realistic about what can seem like a hopeless situation and still having that hope and optimism for the future is key, from the sounds of it, to balancing.
Yes, absolutely.
And having a peer support network around you, which we're definitely going to come and talk about on one of our future podcasts. So thank you for that. And Michael, you work all the time with senior leaders. How have you and your clients experienced issues around being lonely at the top?
Yeah, listening to Peter there inspired me and reminded me, if I went right back to the very first time I felt that loneliness at the top, as people would put it, I spent 10 years being seen as the go-to person to go and fix problems around a large business, international business. And the very first time that happened was I was asked to go and just for 3 months only, could I just, which was what I called the job, could you just go into Poland and oversee their sales team that was in dire trouble, and could I go in there and turn it around and hand it on to somebody to take it on? Well, 3 months, you think that's nothing. Well, within the first few days of being there, they decided to relieve themselves of the general manager, and so I was then, could you just become the general manager of Poland for 3 months? Well, as it turned out, it turns out to be 9 months. But those first few days of the disruption of the change, living in a hotel, because if I'm only here for a short period, yes, I'm there physically in the office every day, but you go back to your own, to your home, to your hotel room, and you feel a little bit isolated there. Funnily enough, I chose the tallest building in Warsaw, and I was on about the 40th floor looking out. It felt even worse being up there because you were not even amongst the noise and buzz of the city, which I learned very quickly. That's what I needed to have. And interestingly enough, my work colleagues later on, and I'll come on very quickly to tell you why they changed, and how they started to then want to see me outside of work. They left me alone. They didn't know who I was. I didn't speak the language. Their English wasn't great, but they'd also come from a culture, and they were in a culture. Some of it was also to go back to their culture as a country in terms of command and control, but it had been like that previously. So they looked at me on day 1, 2, 3, 4, tell us what to do. And you sit there and you go, I don't know all the answers. And Peter mentioned I don't have all the answers. What I can do is show my vulnerability by saying that I don't have all the answers, but helping them to realise they do have the answers. So I started by, first of all, getting them to teach me some Polish. I got them to teach me about their clients. And I really, for the first week, I never made a real major decision on anything, because I just wanted them to explore what they already knew, and the fact that actually they knew how to make most of the decisions. And at the end of the week, that I went home that first week and reflected on what it was, and I got home and I felt I was ready for the next week. At one point I thought I wasn't going to go back, and I went back and I did the 9 months, but they started to call on me. They started to bring me into things. They started inviting me to client meetings. And to the end of the 9 months, I'm still friends 10 years later with a number of those people who reached out to me on a personal level, see how I was, and actually pulled me into their homes and into their families, into their lives, which was far beyond I could ever imagine. But it suddenly, all the things I was missing about being at home with my family and the friends, they replicated that Monday to Friday when I was in Warsaw. So for me, it just came to me as Peter was speaking there, that started me off to make it a lot easier when I went into these different countries, Russia, Turkey, North Africa, etc., as I explored going into new areas, new environments, how I wanted to be.
Fabulous. So just a final 2 words from both of you then. What advice do you have for leaders? Just in a nutshell, based on both your experiences. So maybe Peter first.
Be true to yourself, be consistent, and think about that purpose, that sense of purpose, your own individual sense of purpose, and be true to that.
Fabulous, really strong personal value system amidst everything you're in. And Michael?
So I'll build on that. In addition to that, I think that's a really strong message, is I'd look and pass on to the leaders around having courage to step into places that you wouldn't normally go into. That courage as some great quotes around stepping into the arena, be down down into the arena, be with the people you're working with. Huge. We've talked a lot about vulnerability on this podcast. Show that vulnerability, and finally, curiosity, the ability to be extra curious about yourself and the people around you, and that for me would be the 3 takeaways from my experience.
Fabulous, thank you both. There's lots of my favourite, words beginning with C there. Courageous from you, consistent from Peter, curious. So thank you again for joining us in this series of podcasts on workplace loneliness. And, it can sometimes feel easy to be despondent about the issues, but there is so much action we can take, and we're going to be exploring that in some of our future podcasts. But raising awareness, as you two are doing now, is the first step in dispelling the stigma about loneliness and then educating people about potential solutions. So if you do want to have a look at my white paper which I've written on this subject, have a look at our website www.safe.org.uk, and you can read more there about the issues, and of course please do keep joining us on this series of podcasts to hear some absolutely fabulous words of wisdom from Peter and from Michael, and the next podcast is going to be examining the consequences of workplace loneliness. I look forward to joining with you in that journey shortly.